I am Dr. Pritibala Sinha, an assistant professor, Department of English, Jamshedpur Workers College, Kolhan University. Hello everyone. Today I am going to deliver a lecture on the poem A Valediction forbidding mourning. This lecture is meant for the students of second semester who are studying in Kolhan University with English honors as their subject. This poem was written by the famous English poet Donne in the year 1611. This poem is famous for its metaphysical conceit, and the poet is well known as the father of metaphysical poetry. This term, metaphysical poetry, should be understood. The term metaphysical poets was coined by the critic Dr. Samuel Johnson to describe a loose group of 17th century English poets whose works were characterized by the inventive use of conceits and by a greater emphasis on the spoken rather than lyrical quality of their verse. Such poets were required to possess vast reading and thinking. They did it simply because they wanted to be praised rather than understood. They brought their images and conceits from the remote background which was not traced by the readers of the time. Sometimes they were successful in finding out the unexpected truth. Their far-fetched images and conceits took the idea and meaning of the poem to that realm which was neither expected nor imagined by their contemporary readers. Now, I would like to request each one of you to open the poem so that you will be able to understand it nicely. First, we must look into the title of the poem. The title, A Valediction. A valediction, as you already know means farewell. Forbidding mourning is a pleading that one should not mourn at the time of parting if they are going to part for a longer period. But this poem is more famous for its celebration of pure love, spiritual love, love which is beyond the love limited to senses, limited to what earthly lovers do. Now, coming to the poem, we find that this is based on the theme of two lovers about to part for an extended time. The poem is notable for its use of conceits and ingenious analogies to describe the couple's relationship. The poet was going for a long duration on a trip to continental Europe, and this poem has been addressed to his wife and more. The poem is very simple. The language used here is colloquial, the language of the common people, and so very easy to understand. The poem consists of 36 lines with alternate rhyme schemes, and of course the poem is lyrical as most of the metaphysical poems are. Now I am going to go through every line of the poem so that you will be able to understand it thoroughly. Now, the first 4 lines of the poem run thus. As virtuous men pass mildly away and whisper to their souls to go, whilst some of their sad friends do say, the breath goes now, and some say no. Here, the poet is talking about the virtuous man, the wise man. Death, is inevitable. It comes to all. But when virtuous men die, They die in a very gentle way. They don't mourn or cry at the time of their death. They gently whisper in the ears of their soul to depart silently. They see their friends who are standing by and wishing that the wise persons should live more. Next four lines run thus. So let us melt and make no noise, no tear floods, nor sigh tempests move. It were profanation of our joys to tell the lady our love. Now the poet tells to his beloved that, like the virtuous men, they should also part without making any noise, without any mourning, without any tears in their eyes. They should not profane their love, which is much above all these sorrows and cries. The next four lines follow thus. Moving the earth brings harms and fears. Men reckon what it did and meant, but trepidation of the spheres, though greater far, is innocent. The poet now talks about the movement of the earth. Moving of the earth, as it happens during an earthquake, causes harm and gives rise to great fears. People calculate the damage it does, but the movement of the spheres, though much greater, causes no damage, no harm, and people are not afraid of it. Why? Do you know? Because they are unaware of it. But the moving of the poet and his beloved is greater than that of the earth. It is like trepidation of the spheres, that is, oscillation of the earth around its planets. This trepidation does not do any harm to mankind. As the oscillation of the earth is harmless, so is this parting of the poet and his beloved, his wife, and more. The next four lines run thus. Dull sublunary lovers love, whose soul in its sense cannot admit absence because it doth remove those things which alimented it. Here the poet is talking about the insensitive earthly lovers, the lovers whose love is confined only to senses. They cannot endure the absence of the other. For absence removes the physical self of the beloved on which their love is based. Now coming to the next lines. But we by a love so much refined that ourselves know not what it is, enter assured of the mind, careless eyes, lips, and hands to miss. Now, comparing his love with those of the earthly lovers, the poet says that their love is refined, very pure, spiritual one, in which they are not bound by senses. They don't need the touch of eyes, lips, and hands. They don't miss the parts of body. Rather, their love is spiritual, and so they always consider themselves to be one with each other. The next lines run thus. Our two souls, therefore, which are one, though I must go away, endure not yet a breach but an expansion, like gold to airy thinnest bead. The poet now says that yes, they are two souls, but one. They are not two souls, they are one soul. So, they can endure. There is nothing to endure for them. If they are parting from one another, there is nothing to mourn about. There is nothing to cry about because they are after all one. He further states that when gold is beaten, what happens? It expands. Likewise, their love, the love of the poet and his wife, will only expand when they will remain apart. They will remain far apart. Their love will always go on increasing and will not decrease. Next lines follow thus. If they be two, they are two so, as stiff a twin compass are two. Thy soul, the fixed foot, makes no so to move, but that if the other do. The poet comes to the reality. He agrees that their souls are two, but he goes on to compare the two souls, one of his and the other of his beloved, with that of two needles of a compass, the mathematical instrument. His beloved soul remains fixed, but the other soul, which is his, moves around. The next lines follow thus. And though it is the center, sit, yet when the other far doth roam, it leans and hearkens after it, and grows erect as it comes home. The poet goes on to explain that his beloved's foot, that is the compass, one needle of the compass, remains fixed at the center, but it leans and follows the other foot when it moves, and grows erect and unites with the moving foot when it returns to the starting point after completing the circle. That means the other foot, which is the soul of the poet, is moving around, and the center foot, which is fixed at the center, is following the foot which is roaming. Similarly, the poet's going away would be like the moving of the foot of a compass, and they would be united when he returns home. The last four lines run thus. Such wilt thou to me, who must like the other foot obliquely run. Thy firmness makes my circle just, and makes me end where I began. The further explanation of these lines makes the picture clear. The beloved has the same relations with the lover as the fixed foot of the compass has with the moving foot, which moves and draws a circle. It is the firmness of the fixed foot which enables the moving foot to draw the circle correctly and then return to the place from where it began. Similarly, it is her love and faithfulness which would enable him to perform his journey successfully and then return home. Such a spiritual love would have been expected alone from Donne. Praising about this comparison, this use of metaphysical conceit, S.T. Coleridge, the famous poet, praises the poem as an admirable poem which none but Donne could have written, nothing was ever more admirably made than the figure of the compass. So, now we have come to the end of the poem. This is indeed a very beautiful poem of pure and spiritual love. John Donne has painted a vivid picture of his eternal bond that keeps him attached with his beloved even when they are apart. Perfect use of similes, metaphors, consonances, symbols, and paradox make the poem more emphatic. The compass and the spheres are the symbols of love. Donne uses a metaphysical conceit in stanzas 7 to 9, where he compares his spiritual love with the needles of a compass. Above all, logic has been transformed into poetry, sense has been fused with sensibility. We may quote the words of Listman, who aptly remarked, quote, "In this poem, argument, logical structure, and what we may roughly call substance are really inseparable." Unquote. Now I think that you will be able to write a critical appreciation of the poem. The poem must have been thoroughly understood. Thank you.